is going to wave hello to LinkedIn, everybody. It's starting to send the data. Not yet, Jordan. We're still waiting for the data to go. It's starting to stream, starting to stream. We're streaming on two of them, four of them. Okay, good. Jordan, you want to count me in and we'll play the music?
All right. Have a great show. Going in five,
Five,
four,
four,
three,
three,
two.
2, 1. Here we go. Come on, everybody dance with me. Melanie, I want to see those moves.
Welcome to Read My Lips Radio,
Myron?
a lively hour of
I knew he
unscripted
could
conversations with savvy creatives.
I knew it.
Producer and host, aka Radio Red, asks novelists, artists, photographers, designers, comedians, actors, musicians, composers, screenwriters, directors, and technology innovators about their creative passion, inspirational muses, and how they create. Ooh, how those lips can talk. Now, here's AKA Radio Red.
Thank you to the wonderful voice who introduces me. We'll close the music. I am AKA Radio Red. Happy to be here. It's Monday. Where in the world else would I be? Been doing this show for years and years, and I have three very, very, very interesting creators with me today. And I have to do a quick shout out to Mickey Mickelson in Canada, who has sent me these three wonderful authors. They are all published. They're all multi-authors. I'm very envious because I've been working on my first novel for 3 years now. Maybe you'll all give me a little push in the right direction. And today we're talking about your creativity, who you are, what you do, what's interesting and fun to you, what do you write? How do you write? Why do you write? Where do you write? All that good stuff. Before we get started, I want you all to join me in making the sign of the letter L with your hand. Whichever hand you are, make the letter L. Myron, there you go. Letter L, 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 L. There we go. Raise that thumb, Myron. I want to see that thumb. Oh, I knew you could do it. On the count of 3, you're going to join me in saying hello, L, L, L. Just like that. 1, 2, 3. Hello.
Hello.
L,
L.
L,
L.
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 Okay, a little scattered. Jordan, put them in for third place. You can put your hand down now. LLL is lovely, lanky Laura Legg. She's our most loyal listener. That's a lot of alliterative L's. There you go. I met her in a dance class years ago. I wasn't giving it. I was taking it. We became friends. And Laura hasn't been feeling well, but she thinks she'll be able to listen or watch tonight on YouTube. And she is going to send me an email, Myron and Melanie and JM, Jennifer, at 6:01 p.m. And she will tell me what you said on the show. She'll give me a little book report about each of you and how much she enjoyed hearing you. And she always calls me beautiful, gorgeous lady of red, so I expect that. So there we go. Today, by the way, let's see where we are. This is the 31st of March, last day of the first quarter of 2025. It's spring. It's the 90th day in 2025 in the Gregorian calendar. No more Julian. He skipped a whole bunch of days in October, and Gregorian said, no, we're going to do it better. We'll have a leap day every 4th year. There are 275 days left in the year. It's the 13th Monday, and I'm the only one who cares about that. So I'm going to do my opening now, and when I call your name, I'd like you to wave so everybody can double check and make sure they know who you are. So here we go. Welcome to Read My Lips, where AK Radio Red shines bright. See, I'm shining bright, bringing cool conversations with creatives for your delight. In her Scarlett Mike's live streaming glow, she opens the door. I can see the door open now for creative sparks to ignite and inspiration to soar. Here we go. Melanie P. Smith. Melanie, wave hello. Melanie crafts tales full of thrill, from cops to suspense with action that's chill. Decades in law gave her insight so keen. Now in her stories, the truth can be seen. An adventurer bold, on her Harley she'll ride, or capture the wild in her camera's stride. With Connections e-magazine, Melanie helps authors grow, a beacon for writers, so creativity can flow. Melanie, what'd you think?
Very good.
I'll take that. There you go. Next, we have J.M. Shaw, Jennifer, but she said she wants to be J.M., and here we are. J.M. Shaw spins worlds with a curious mind, a passion for writing. She's one of a kind. Inspired by legends, she's forged her own way with words that enchant and stories that sway. J.M.'s path wasn't easy, but she kept on her quest, proving her talent with courage and zest. With The Ascension, her dream took its flight, a voice for the bold, a force burning bright. JM, what'd you think?
Lovely.
I'm glad we got a very good and a lovely. Okay, Myron Edwards is here. Myron found his rhythm in beats. Then he turned to words for comedic feats. From the two Ronnies to BBC fame, his sketches and scripts earned him a name. In ads, Myron excelled, his wit shining through. A dog food commercial in days. What a view! Now myths and adventure provide him delight, bringing Cyprus-born legends to life with his might. Myron, what'd you think?
I think that was super. I'd like to write that on my CV if I ever went back to work.
There you go. I know you're retired. So let me finish. So gather round, lend us your eye and your ear as we dive into creativity with our vision clear. AKA Radio Red's roundtable is set today. We hope to inspire you to live large, love life, and play. So I hope you all enjoyed your introduction. Yes?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. I'm glad. Show's over. No, okay, we're just getting started. There you go. By the way, this is a low budget show and I'm the green room warm up comedian. So if you don't get my sense of humor, I'm just sorry. So here we are live streaming and I'd like to catch up. I know in 8 lines, I just captured a little tiny bit of what you're all about. We'd like to know a little more. Melanie, I'm putting you on speaker view. Would you please do me the honor of filling in a few of the blanks for us, please? And welcome.
So I am a multi-genre author. I write paranormal romance, epic fantasy, police procedural, criminal suspense, little contemporary romance, basically whatever I'm in the mood for that day. I haven't counted them. I have over 20 books published, and a couple of novellas. I also I'm the editor-in-chief for a magazine. It's called Connections e-magazine. It is a free publication. I do it with a group of international authors, and we do it quarterly where we promote fellow authors with new releases. We have a writing competition. We call it the 1,000-word challenge, where we put out a picture and then you tell a story in 1,000 words based on that picture. We do interviews and just author-related information, basically, just promoting other authors. That's about it.
That's
Anything
a
else?
lot. That's a lot. Go ahead.
Do you want my history? I have a law enforcement history.
Yep.
I can talk about that, or I can be done.
Just give me a little tiny bit of your law enforcement history. We'd like to know that, please.
So I worked as a civilian in law enforcement for 26 years, and then I retired in 2016. And during that time, I worked with all our specialty units. I worked in the Special Operations Division. So that is search and rescue, SWAT, motors, the air unit, mounted posse, our canyons. And I did a whole wide range of things with that division. I did communication and logistics for our SWAT team, our search and rescue team, and our child abduction response team.
Wow. And when you say civilian, meaning you were not a law enforcement officer, you worked in that communications area. Is that correct? In other areas?
Yes. So like on the SWAT team, when SWAT got called out, I got called out. When I was in the SWAT truck coordinating logistics and communications on the SWAT call out.
Wow.
I did the same thing for search and rescue, and I was on the logistics team for our child abduction response team.
Very important work. Thank you, Melanie. Delighted to have you here. 20 books. My goodness, I'm just going to say that. Delighted to meet you. J.M. Shaw is with us. J.M., I'm putting you on speaker view. Would you please fill in the blanks for us and welcome?
I've actually been writing for 34 years now. And I had never shared any of my work. I've always been a very what if person. So I always thought, what if this, what if that, and kind of sparked interest in writing, but I'd never shared anything. And then 2019, I was diagnosed with autism and ADHD. And I thought, well, maybe this is my special interest because I've been writing for so long. And I had just completed my first book in my series, The Ascension, in the Callum Walker series. And I thought, oh, I'm going to get brave. I'm going to send this off to an editor. And if they say it sucks, then I know and I'll move on. But they came back and they said, this doesn't suck. You should publish. So 2 years later, I did. And then the next year, another one, and next year, another one. I've got my fourth one coming out in a few months. And yeah.
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Does your diagnosis figure into any of the characters in your books, JM?
I think it's hard to write characters and not put some of yourself into them. I haven't specifically made a character with autism and ADHD, but there are elements of myself in every single character I write.
Okay. You want to hold up one of your books so we can see a cover, please?
This one's my first book.
Callum. How did you come up with the name Callum? Is that a Canadian name? I'm not familiar with it.
That was so my family's Scottish,
Oh,
and it was a list on my list of baby names, but my husband didn't like it. I have a Morgan and we have an Avery, but I'm like, I really like that name. So I went with
so you just created your own person with that name. I love it. Thank you. I'm always interested in how people pick names for their characters. So, yes, we'll talk about that later. Thank you and welcome. Myron Edwards is here. What a history you have, sir. I read your bio and you've done so much in so many places and so many industries, and you're here as a creative writer. So, Myron, I'm putting you on speaker view. Would you just spend a couple minutes filling in some blanks for us? Tell us what you've been doing. Welcome.
I really started writing after I decided to leave the band that I was in, because the guy that I was working with, him and I joined up together. He was the lead singer. I was the drummer. He asked me, we've got to do some scripts for a hospital radio. I said, well, I've never written anything in life. What are you on about? So he said, yeah, you go on, just write some bits for me. So we did a hospital radio show, and we were left with a lot of the material. And he sent them to the Two Ronnies. Now, the Two Ronnies were the biggest comedy group, the comedy duo in the UK, and in fact, they were worldwide. And we were lucky we got on the Christmas show, which gave us the start. And from there on, we started to write for radio as well. We wrote for Roy Hudd. We wrote for Weekending. We did stuff for, well, he did some TV for Dick Emery. I did some TV for Marty Kane, and I also did some TV for A Kick Up the 80s, which starred Tracy Ullman, who went on to be Tracy Ullman, basically. So I was doing TV, I was doing radio, and at the same time, having been in the travel industry for what, 30 years, and doing things like running airlines and tour operators and everything really, because I started in the travel agency when I was 16. I was a Saturday boy stamping up brochures, believe it or not. And then after that, what happened was that I went to JWT, and they were the biggest advertising agency in the world, and they did a thing called the copy test. Now, for your listeners, I'm going to give you a question, and the question was the second question in the copy test. Write a radio commercial which features no words or music, but the product that you actually write about must be clearly apparent. And you can't use words, you can't use music, so all you can do is use sounds, and you have to come up with an advertising idea. After that, I joined JWT as a copywriter, and as a copywriter, I wrote my first TV commercial in 10 days for a dog food, where we used a helicopter, which was fun. And then, as far as that goes, when it flitted in and out with things like tour operating, and also what was called incentive travel. And then I went to move where I am now today in Cyprus. I brought all my family over, and that gave me an idea when we went to see. Well, I'll tell you about that later. I'm taking too much time.
No, you're not taking too much time. You have a fascinating history. All of you do. But I have to tell you that I read in your bio, Myron, that you created a tube-based traveler's tourist map of London in 1987. I've never heard of it. Would you just briefly tell us a little bit about what that is? Go ahead.
Absolutely. The underground state of the underground in London was a terrible state in those days. Train to LA, they cancelled. People used to find that there were strikes all the time because the way that the actual underground was run. So one night I was at Tottenham Court Road Station, and they're cancelled. Trains all cancelled. Buses absolutely full to the brim. So I thought, well, I've got to walk back to Liverpool Street now. What's the best way to do this? So I took shortcuts. Basically, I took the shortcuts and I looked at my watch as I started off, and I was there in just 20 minutes, 25 minutes into Liverpool Street. Well, the underground takes nearly 15 minutes to get into Liverpool Street, so I was only 10 minutes after. Now, the main thing that happened was a day later, I got in a taxi, and this guy, Jim, who was the taxi driver, he knew the knowledge. So, which is the way that you actually become a taxi driver, because that way you know all the different routes.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him, could you write me out 12 routes from mainline stations which we could walk? And he said, yeah, that's not a problem. I thought I'd never hear from him again, but a week later he came into the office. He'd had a cold, believe it or not, and that cold had told him, oh, well, I've got nothing else to do. I might see these routes for this bloke. So I used my art director, who was at the agency I was working with, and he created the maps. And from the maps, we created the books. And we sold the books in W.H. Smith's. We sold them to the London Tourist Board, and it went on from there. But we run out of money. That was the problem, like everything.
Well, that's very interesting. They say, what did they say? Necessity is the mother of invention or something like that. And you had a necessity and you created and you invented, innovated something that wasn't there before. And that's how these things happen. So, yeah, are people still using that? My engineer tells me he may need one because it sounds like he's going to London. Are these maps still available, Myron?
Unfortunately, there isn't any more tube walking as such, but there's a lot of copies of it. So people have basically taken the idea and changed it a little bit,
Okay.
and use the basics of it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jordan. Jordan's my engineer. Jordan, you've been told. There we go. You put you in touch with Myron after that. Thank you all for the bios. You're all absolutely fascinating to me. I look for more than just how many books you've written and published. I look for who you are and what motivates you and what sparks your thoughts and what gets you to sit down and write. I just find that fascinating. I'm having trouble finishing my book, as I told you. So let's go to the opening quotes. You've all sent really good quotes, fictional quotes from characters in movies or TV shows or song lyrics. I'll go through the list. And Melanie, I'm going to read your quote with just a tiny bit about it. And I'd like you to take about 2 minutes and tell us what this has to do with you and your creativity. So the quote is from Professor John Keating, I think everybody knows, played by the wonderful late and way too soon late Robin Williams. The movie is Dead Poets Society, 1989 teen drama film. And Melanie, I've never understood why they call it a teen drama film because it was so much bigger than that. It's set at a fictional Welton Academy elite all-male conservative Vermont boarding school. That's a mouthful. The story of an English teacher who is just very, very different and inspires his students through teaching poetry. And that is Professor John Keating, who was a former Rhodes Scholar and an alumni of the Welton Academy as well. So here's the quote. Carpe diem. Seize the day, boys. Make your lives extraordinary. Melanie, putting you back on speaker view. Tell us why you picked this one. Go ahead.
Picked it because I believe that no matter who we are, we all have the ability to be extraordinary. And personally, as it pertains to my writing, for many, many years, I I don't know if it's a mistake, but I viewed my writing, my talent, as a hobby, something that I never planned to share with anybody. It was just something I did for myself. So it was kind of a hidden talent because I didn't seize the day. And I ultimately was pressured by my husband and my mom to, that's kind of a story. I don't know if we have time for it, but
Go ahead. Go ahead.
so I was winding down my career at the sheriff's office, and I had not written creatively for many years. Life kind of got in the way. I did a lot of writing for the sheriff's office, putting out brochures, websites, awards, certificates, and stuff for the office. But I just kind of set my creative writing aside and focused on my job. And my career is winding down, and I just decided I really miss that. I really miss writing. So I sat down and just in my free time, just kind of to relax, I started writing my first series. And I was writing my book, and I would be sitting with my husband. He'd be watching TV, and I'd be over on my laptop just writing away. And finally, one day, he just looks at me and he says, "What in the world are you doing? I know that you're not bringing work home because you don't have anything. You're just sitting there typing away on your computer. What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just entertaining myself writing a story." And it was a paranormal romance. It's my Warrior series. The first book is Dusk. That's the first book I ever published. And it's about warriors, fae, vampires, shifters. And I told him I'm writing this story. And he says, "Well, when you're done, are you going to let me read it?" And I told him, "No, you don't really like that. You're not going to be interested. You won't want to." And he kept pressuring me and pressuring me until I finally gave it to him to read it. And he actually called me at work and said, "This is not a story, it's a book. Since when do you write books? This is really good."
Wow.
And so I got like, that was huge because my husband, who doesn't like fantasy, he's into Louis L'Amour and Joseph Wambaugh. He's reading my fantasy and he's telling me that he really likes it. And then he got done and he asked me what I was going to do with it. And I said, nothing. It was for me. And so he kept pressuring me and I wouldn't do anything with it. So he snuck his copy to my mom so that my mom could read it, unbeknownst to me. And then my mom got done with it and she gave it to my sister, who gave it to my other sister, who gave it to one of her employees. And then I kept getting these phone calls. "When's the next one going to be done? When's the next one going to be done? You need to publish this so people have access to it." And so that's kind of how I was kind of pressured into publishing that first book. So
that is a great story. I'm going to turn it into encouraged rather than pressured, but I know you felt it as pressure.
yeah.
So they obviously saw that there was something really good there, and they thought it was bigger than just Melanie sitting there on her laptop.
Just Melanie's hobby. Yeah. And so it's kind of my example of we need to seize the day.
Seize
We
the
need
day.
to seize
Carpe
our
diem.
talent
Yep.
and see if we can be extraordinary, because we all have that ability to be extraordinary in some way.
Thank you. I think we do. Let's move on to JM. Jennifer, would you want me to call you JM or Jennifer? What's your preference? I'm doing both.
Oh, you can call me Jennifer.
Okay. Hi, Jennifer. Jennifer has picked a quote that I use at the end of this show very often if I have a little extra time. It's a favorite of mine. It's voiced by Mandy Moore playing the character Rapunzel. The movie is called Tangled, 2010. Can you believe that's 15 years ago? It's a 3D computer animated musical adventure fantasy comedy film. Now, Jennifer, that's a lot of genres, and they don't even have dashes in them. Usually romantic drama or something has a dash, but there's no hyphens in it. Walt Disney, of course, loosely based on the German fairy tale Rapunzel, from the collection of folk tales published by the Brothers Grimm. And what's interesting was it was conceived by an animator in 2001 at Disney named Glenn Keane, Keane. It took 6 years in production. It cost $260 million. It's the most expensive animated feature film ever made and one of the most expensive films of all time. I thought that was very, very interesting. Here is the line, and I love this one. Venture outside your comfort zone. The rewards are worth it. Oh, yes. Go ahead. Why'd you pick this one, Jennifer?
I guess it kind of goes along the similar lines as like seizing the day. But there was a quote that I grew up with when I was a kid that I really liked. It's like a ship at harbor is safe, but that's not what ships were built for. And if you stay inside your safe little bubble, you're never going to know what you can accomplish and what you can do. On another angle, looking at that is I always think outside the box. I never stop thinking. And if I didn't, I would be bored out of my mind. I'm always, yeah, I can't shut my brain down. I do tell people that a lot of times when I'm writing, I see it as a movie in my head, and I'm just writing down what I see. And if I ever get stuck for ideas, I will put my headphones on and I will go out there and just watch a video as I'm walking and stuff. But if we don't move out of our bubble, if I never got brave enough to share my stuff, I never would have become a published author. It's just you've got to push yourself to get out there.
I think you're right. I'm waiting to push myself to get out there. Thank you very much. By the way, Jennifer, a little birdie told me you got a doggy there named what? What's your dog's name?
Glamour.
Glamour. I have never met a dog named Glamour. Can you show us Glamour for a second? Is she going to make an appearance? Aw, sweet. Very, very. Oh, beautiful. Thank you very much. I had to give her cameo. There you go. Okay, as they say in the movies. Okay, here we go. Myron Edwards, you have sent me a quote that is very, very long. It was said by General Sam Houston, played by an actor I used to watch on TV in so many movies, TV shows. His name was Richard Boone. This movie is The Alamo, 1960 American epic historical war film about the siege and battle of the Alamo from 1836. And Richard Boone played Houston, leader of the Texas Army who hopes to stand at the Alamo will gain him time to gather troops to repel the forces from Santa Anna. There we go. Had some interesting people in it. I can't believe that Frankie Avalon was in this. This doesn't even seem possible. I didn't even know he was alive in 1960, but we'll leave that one alone. It's a long speech. Myron, do you remember sending this quote to me? I'm going to read. Yeah, I'm going to read a little bit of it. It's from the movie script on page 9. I found the actual full movie script. Yesterday I read you, Colonel Fannon's message, telling us he could not reach the Alamo in time. Today I have this from the Alamo. They are surrounded, and we can't help them. Now tomorrow. When your recruits start to whine and bellyache, you tell them that 185 of their friends, neighbors, fellow Texans are holed up in a crumbling adobe church down on the Rio Bravo, buying them this precious time. I hope they remember. I hope Texas remembers. Oh my, Myron, I hope I did justice to that. Go ahead. What in the world does this have to do with your creativity? Please tell us.
As far as that particular speech is concerned, when I first saw the film, I was about 9. So it was 1960. And it's the first film my mum and dad took me to see. Had no idea what it was about. But when I was 50, I went to the Alamo because that had such an impact on me. The story is all about courage, and writing is all about courage. That is where I, if you like, draw the line in the same way that Travis drew the line in the sand for people to either walk over or stand behind. And they stood. And they were amazing because basically they were outnumbered by, there's different accounts, 5,000 or 7,000 Mexicans who were battle-hard troops. And he thought that they wouldn't get there before April, but in fact they got there much, much earlier. And they celebrated their anniversary on March the 6th this year. And it's an impactful story because you have 2 legends from that particular era, which was Davy Crockett, and you had Jim Bowie, both of them from, shall we say, folklore. But Crockett had been a congressman, and he said to everybody else, You could vote who you like, but I'm going to the hell out to get out of down to Texas, and that basically was the story. The story is all about courage in overwhelming odds. They knew they were going to die. There was no way that they were going to survive this, but in doing what they did, they gave the opportunity to Sam Houston to get all his troops together. And at the Battle of San Jacinto, which lasted less than 2 hours, they defeated Santa Anna. Now, there is an issue that says Houston should have executed Santa Anna on the spot, but he gave him a handshake, which was a Mason's handshake. And actually, if you go to the Alamo area, that's the best way I can describe it, you'll see all the people who were at the Alamo, and most of them were Masons. There is an actual statue there that commemorates the Masons who were at the Alamo. As far as the creativity aspect of it goes, it basically encompasses everything to do with courage. Courage runs through most stories in one form or another, and that to me epitomizes the essence of courage.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very, very interesting. Yes, Davy Crockett and Sam Houston and Jim Bowie all were characters from a lot of the TV westerns that I watched when I was a little girl. I'm not going to say anything more than that. We'll just leave that one on the table. Thank you very much, Red. Okay, so I appreciate the quotes. You all put a lot of effort into them, and you picked some wonderful quotes. So let's go to the part of the show where I'm going to pick and choose a couple of creativity statements from each of you and ask you to expand them a little bit. And then if any of the others, I'm going to start with you, Melanie, if Jennifer or Myron has anything to say after Melanie is done. I think you all have 10 fingers. I didn't count, but I don't talk to the middle finger, but any of the other fingers, wiggle a finger at me on the screen and I will see it and I will call you. Myron's practicing. That's very, very good, Mr. Edwards. Very, very good. That would have helped you find a cab in London if you couldn't walk the tube map. I know that. Very, very talented. And wiggle finger, and then you can say something. Sometimes we just find our own unique ways of looking at creativity, and we find that it's shared, that it impacts other people, that we have had the same experience or we want to. So that's what we're going to look for right now. It's not a homework assignment. We're just going to have fun with it. So, Melanie, I'm going to combine a couple of things from your statement number 1 and statement number 4, and let's see where we go with this. I'll read them. You don't have to look for them. Number 1, you say, I like to tell people I write to justify all those voices in my head. I feel like I'm the most creative. People are nodding. I'm the most creative when I'm bored. That's when my characters speak the loudest and their stories take unexpected turns. That was number 1. And number 4, I'm just going to add this one line here. You say creativity is finding a blank canvas and seeing potential. Melanie, really, really interesting. Go ahead. Take us through this, please.
So yes, I say that because it always gets, people look at me weird, like, you have voices in your head. And so it kind of gets a reaction, which my sense of humor, I enjoy doing. I relate very well to what Jennifer said as she writes. I basically see this movie in my head and I'm just writing it. I'm just telling the story, but it's like it has a life of my own. By the time I'm done with a series, my characters feel like friends. That's about it.
I can relate to that. I wrote 3 romantic comedy plays about 8 years ago, and I started one day. I said, I want to write a play, but I didn't know how. So I Googled what's play look like, and I found a downloadable document called Playwriting 101, and it gave me the font and the leading and how you set up the scene and you define the characters and how curtain up and rise, and just like a real play. I wrote from 1 to 4 in the morning for 3 nights. Melanie, the characters were in my head. They told me who they were. I picked the setting, Penn Station in New York. I picked the setting and they just spoke. They just talked and talked and talked to each other. They talked to me. And in 3 nights, I had a play. And I was doing a cable TV show at the time, hosting and producing. And I went to my crew and I said, I'm going to get some actors. I found some community theater actors on Long Island, New York, who were willing to. I said, you don't have to memorize anything. We'll put some teleprompters in front of you, because they had full-time jobs and they were acting in other plays. And I didn't want this to be a burden for them. So we green screened. They sat in an empty studio on chairs or boxes with a green curtain behind them, and we put it in video, and it took place in a cab. Myron, it took place in a van that was a New York City cab in front of Penn Station. And my director went and he filmed sounds of Manhattan and got the sounds, and then he filmed scenes of traffic in Manhattan. So we had them sitting inside a digital image of a cab. They were sitting on chairs, and I bought a toy steering wheel for the cab driver, and we mounted it on a table, and we had teleprompters, and we recorded it, and I had to edit it down to 26 minutes, because that was the length. The TV show was 30 minutes, and there was time. Myron knows this, PSAs, opening and closing, and a little announcement here and there. And I ended up doing 3 of those plays, and they just literally, Melanie, the characters told me what to say. They just talked through me. I was channeled, and it was a wonderful experience. That's my story. Jennifer or Myron, do you have anything you want to add to what Melanie shared, or me? Jennifer, go ahead.
I know I have a lot of people ask me, it's like, how would you feel if your stories were brought into a movie or a series, a television series? And I was like, well, I think a lot of authors would love to see their movies in on the screen and stuff. But in all honesty, I don't have to pay for the special effects in my head, and they are quite more amazing than anything they can create on computer or in other special effects.
There you go. Well, I became a coach and a director and a script writer in order to do this with these 3 people. And I helped them define and refine the characters in their own words so they could act them. It was a tremendous experience. Myron, what do you think?
My thing is that I write in pictures. So in other words, if I can visualize it, I can write it. But so in the first instance, before I wrote the book, was I wrote the screenplay, and writing the screenplay seemed to be a good way to actually get all of the information that I wanted to get out into a screenplay and then convert it into a book, because it was then just a case of padding it, getting because you had everything all down, but you just needed then to just, as I say, pad it with different pieces of action and literature, literally where you were taking the characters, where the next place was, etc. So that's how I write. If I can't picture it,
Mm-hmm.
I can't write it. I'm sorry. That's
Yep.
the way.
Well, that was one of your statements I was going to pick, but I have a lot more, so that's fine when we got to you. That's very, very interesting. I heard these people and I saw them. I saw them visually in my mind. What's interesting was we had a couple of more actors show up than I needed. So we had a different male. It was a man and woman meet on a dating app in Manhattan for the first time, wearing funny masks like Groucho Marx noses and mustaches and all that. And they know each other by numbers. That was the premise. And they get in the cab and have their first date. But it takes through 10 years in their lifetime. Each section of each act of the play was taking them through 10 years in their life. And it was an interesting, bittersweet ending. I'll leave it at that. But it just was it was wonderful to feel them come to life. And I did picture them, Myron. I pictured them standing there, and what would they say to each other, and who would get in the cab first, and what would they say, and what would the cab driver respond, and how would he hear them, and what would he say to them? And then when they came back 3 years later, he would say, hey, I know the 2 of you. You were named after jewelry stores. One's Tiffany and the other is Zale. I know who you are. And then again, in the 3rd act, he sees them again. He says, listen, what can I tell you? You're back. And so he's responding almost like the narrator in their life. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. Let's go on. Thank you. Oh, Melanie, go ahead.
I have one thing. You've mentioned a couple times that you're still trying to write your first book. I would say do that with your book.
No,
sit down and envision it in your mind, and it will take off and you will see the movie and you will have to write it down because it'll come
Thank
to
you.
life for you.
It's all there. I just did it in two parts. I did the almost murder in one part and I did the background in the other. And it's so much fun. I keep going back and reading it and say, this is a riot. And I never put the two pieces together. It's all written. I just have to, bulldoze it together. Jennifer, what do you want to say?
I was just gonna say, writing a novel, it's a marathon. It's not a race. There's no finish line. Even if you're writing just a paragraph a day, you're still making a move towards that end product. So, I use my writing as a self-care. I mean, it started as a hobby, became a passion. For me, it's cheaper than therapy now. It's kind of my obsession. So, I mean, it takes a while to get into it, but if you do it long enough, and even if you just write a little line, you're still making progress.
Thank you. You're all very encouraging. Let me go to Jennifer. You're next. I picked a couple of statements from you. I think you already mentioned this, but it's worth repeating. You say, every story I write usually begins with a question. I like that. And then you said, when I spend as much quality time as I can with my family while I spend, when everyone else is occupied, I slip away to a quiet corner and write as much as I can until someone notices me. My giant poodle, we just met Glamour. My giant poodle usually joins me, serving as both a leg warmer and a compression blanket while I work, being that I often become time blind during not realizing the passage of time while immersed in a hyper focus. I usually set an alarm to go off every few hours so I can take a short body break and get a snack before returning to my writing. This is very, very interesting. So tell us a little more about this, Jennifer.
Yeah, so I have two very busy boys. I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and they're both on the spectrum and they both have ADHD, just like me. So it can be very loud and very busy in our household and such. But I mean, I need that me time. I need that, I'm still a human, even though I'm their mom. And for me, writing has become my self-care. It has become my escape from the stressors of life. And I give it attention, I give it time, but I have to fight sometimes for that time. When I'm not trying to keep my children from killing each other, if they're occupied doing something else, they don't need me in that moment, so I can slip away and take care of myself. I like that when I sit on the couch with my laptop on my lap and I've got my legs all stretched out, my dog will lay on my legs, and she's about 68 pounds and she's really warm because I like to put a blanket over top of her, especially in the wintertime when she gets all shaved down. So it's so comfy. But yes, I do get immersed in my hyper focus and I will forget that the world exists. Until somebody comes and actually physically jumps on me or, Mom, I need a snack. And then it draws me out of it. But if I'm alone and I don't have that, or I get really into a hyper focus, I do have to set alarms because I will forget to eat. I'll stand at 8 a.m. It's sun's just coming up and I'll stop and then I'll be looking around. I was like, everybody's in bed and the sun has set. Where did the day go?
It's gracious. I should be so lucky I should forget to eat. There you go. Anybody have any comments about the hyperfocus? And don't we usually call that being in the zone? Is that the same thing, Jennifer? Being in the zone for writing, or is it different?
It's different because hyperfocus just means I have to do this. I got to get this done.
Okay.
When I'm in the zone, like it's like I'm channeling creative energy out of me. I will visualize, like I said, I visualize stuff in my head as a movie. Stop. Sorry. And I will be writing, it's like, I don't know where my characters are going to go. And then I'll see it's like, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen. And I'll just like write because I'm along for the ride and the ideas are just pouring out of me. And I'll get to a spot where I either question my sanity, like that came out of me, or I'll be like, wow, I thought of that. So that's the zone. Hyper focus is just, you forget everything that's
Got
going
it.
on, task oriented.
Thank you for differentiating. I appreciate it. Yes, I think I've experienced both. Let me go to Myron now. And Myron, you had so many interesting things to say. I think you've already told us some, but let me put a few things together. You say, so you want to be a writer? But as I found out, being a writer is not easy. If it was, a lot more people would do it. There you go. And you say, when I worked in advertising, I was given a brief premise of what the ad or campaign is supposed to be, but I had to come up with a solution that answered that brief. The creativity was in the solution, then the production, whatever the media was. When writing, I find that I can always envisage the story, but when I do, I can write it because you can't turn creativity on like a tap. Very interesting, Mr. Edwards. Why don't you tell us a little bit more, please? Go ahead.
Well, I can talk about my books and how they began, because that's a whole creative story in itself. I live in Cyprus, and in Cyprus, the biggest, if you like, legend is Aphrodite. It's basically the symbol of the island. And now, of course, the island is the island of love, and love is all about what Aphrodite is about, being the goddess of love. So when I first came over, and this was before we were married, we came to Cyprus, my wife and I, Nikki, and we went to Petrotourumio, which is actually Aphrodite's rock. And we went to a cafe up in Aphrodite's rock, and I was walking around, and I was in the cafe, and I saw a poster on the wall. Now, it was done by the Cyprus Tourist Office, but I've never been able to find it. And when I rang the Cyprus Tourist Office, they didn't know what the hell I was talking about. Anyway, I saw this poster. Now, what is particularly interesting about the poster is the fact that it's an aerial shot taken from above the rocks, and in the water is a figure, and the figure is, I think, that of Aphrodite. And that's what I used as my concept for the story. And the idea is that the figure in the water is, in fact, Aphrodite. And because of the fame of Aphrodite, the book is all about how somebody can bring her back almost to life. And it's a fantasy story, which also involves quite a few of the legends of the ancient Greeks. So that was the first book. The second book was a follow-on, and then the third book was the end of the trilogy itself. But all of it was based on this, if you like, epiphany moment. That's how it all came about. But I wrote, as I said before, and after I wrote the screenplay, I wrote my first book based on the screenplay, and gave it to my wife as a Christmas present. Just one book. Got it published, just done by a local publisher. And then other people read it and said, why don't you try and get it published? So I sent the if you like, the script and the manuscript that I did to a publisher in Nicosia. And he said, this is really good. Can you come and see me? So we went up on the Monday, and on the Tuesday, I'd signed a contract to print 5,000 books.
Nice.
Yeah,
very
printed
nice.
them in English. We printed them in Greek. So that was the first, if you like, escapade into that particular idea. About 2 weeks later, somebody had said they'd read in the press about my story, and they wanted to make a film of it. So I got a film company get in touch with me. They started to plan the film, and we had Gillian, who was in the X-Files. Gillian Anderson. She was going to play one of the parts in the story. We had various other actors as well, some Greek, some English, some international A-listers. So it's all going swimmingly well. And then along came the financial crisis in Greece and Cyprus shortly afterwards. So everything was pulled, the whole lot, including my publisher. He went bust. So it's just it's a catalogue of good things, and then it's a catalogue of disasters. That's what you get in this writing world.
Sometimes you do, absolutely. Funny story, I was cleaning out my computer and going through things. I needed to save videos of all the shows, and I have 4 series right now. And I was cleaning out files on my computer, and I discovered articles I had written. I was a stringer for an entertainment magazine, and I was given free concert tickets to a place on Long Island, used to be called Westbury Music Fair Theater in the Round, 14th row aisle seat. I had a Kodak DX6490 camera, not my camera on my phone. This was 20 years ago, kids. And I reported on concerts, Patti LaBelle, Johnny Mathis, Neil Sedaka, the Smothers Brothers, not Dick Cavett, another one, B.B. King. And I discovered my report, a JPEG of my report in the magazine on my reporting on Patti LaBelle with pictures. I took my own images and published the pictures. And I read it and I cried because I said, damn, I was a good writer back in the day. And I sent it to a bunch of friends, and somebody said, I feel like I was there. You did such a good job. So this got my spark going, Melanie and Jennifer and Myron. It got me, this was just last night. And so I think it's go. So thank you all for those statements. This is lovely. I want to read some events. We've got about 5 minutes left. I want to fill this with some interesting on this date. That's part of what I do on this show. So today, March 31st, a couple of things I think you might find interesting. On this day in 1949, RCA introduced the 45 RPM record. I had boxes of those. It became the format of choice for singles, not people music, more popular than the 78 RPM format by 1958. Interesting. On this date in history, in 1973, Elton John appeared on the front page of Melody Maker. I assume that's a magazine. And it said, now Elton's a teen idol. I thought that was interesting. On this day in 1985, the first WrestleMania was at Madison Square Garden in New York. That's where my play took place. Liberace was the timekeeper, and Cyndi Lauper was managing the wrestler Wendy Richter, who won the women's championship. I thought that was a riot. And on this day in 1992, Bruce Springsteen released 2 albums on the same day, Human Touch and Lucky Town. It was his first since an album, the last one he did with the E Street Band. So that's in music. Today, Shirley Jones. Anybody remembers the Partridge Family? Did anybody ever see that? Okay, I've got sun in my face here. I'm just going to ignore it. Shirley Jones is 91 today. She was on the Partridge Family with her real life stepson, David Cassidy, was on the show. There you go. Today, Christopher Walken. Who doesn't know and love Christopher Walken? More cowbell. He's 82. He has acted in over 100 movies and TV shows. What can I tell you? All over the place. Before fame, he was a child actor known as Ronnie Walken. There you go. Today, William Daniels is 98. He played Dr. Mark Craig on St. Elsewhere, if anybody remembers that, and Mr. Feeney on Boy Meets World and Girl Meets World. Okay. Today, very sad news last night. Richard Chamberlain, the actor and singer, passed away. Today would have been his 91st birthday. 1 day short of 91. Born in Beverly Hills, he was Dr. Kildare, and he starred in The Thornbirds and in Shogun. Wonderful, wonderful, and charismatic, unbelievable. Okay, quickly now. I got 3 minutes here. I always do people on the social media. Oh, goodness gracious. The sun is coming in, and I can't get up and change just forgive me, I got lines through my face here. So I do people on social media, who have an amazing number of followers. They get to my birthday list. So if you've ever heard of Liza Koshy, Koshy, she's 29 today. She's a star on Instagram, Vine, and YouTube. Why? Myron is saying, I don't know who she is. Myron, she has 16 million subscribers on YouTube. She has 20 million followers on Instagram. And she started posting comedy videos on Vine, and she got 5 million fans there. I just wanted to tell you that, okay? She won the 2017 Choice Star, Web Stars Female at the Teen Choice Awards. She hosts a Nickelodeon reboot, all that stuff. And today on TikTok, I know, Esther Luxey, Luxey, is 24 today. Why is she here? She only has 1.5 million followers. Don't feel sorry for her because she has 248 million likes. I did have somebody who had 16 billion recently. They only get to my list if they have an extraordinary number. She's a French TikTok star who posts quick edits featuring travel clips, makeup tutorials, Jennifer, short modeling photos, and lip sync videos and tutorials. 248 million likes. I keep saying I'm in the wrong business. March 31st, today is Crayola Crayon Day. They started in 1902 with the Binney and Smith Company, and it's National Tater Day. It's National Clams on the Half Shell Day. I got to go. And it's American Crossword Puzzle Week. This is the month of peanuts, celery, berries, cherries, caffeine awareness, March Madness. That's all enough. So don't go away. We're going to close now. So here we go. Life is short. Break the rules. Forgive quickly. Kiss slowly. Oh, yeah. Love truly. Laugh uncontrollably. Everybody laugh with me. 1, 2, 3. Ah! I don't hear you. Jennifer, let me hear you laughing. Force yourself. And never regret anything that made you smile. Final close. Work like you don't need the money. Dance like no one's watching. When I taught disco in high heels, everybody watched. Sing like nobody's listening. Love like you've never been hurt. We all have. Get over it. Let your heart regroup and regrow and love again. Money talks. Chocolate sings. Ooh-ah! And last but not least, I stole this line from somebody years ago. Thank you for turning me on. Now, let me go and do the closing music, and then we'll stick around for a minute if you don't mind. So let me put this up, and let's do this. Here we go.
On Read My Lips Radio, producer and host, aka
Come on, you can dance
Radio
with me
Red,
again.
invites you to eavesdrop on her live, unscripted conversations with smart, savvy, creative people.
Come on, Myron,
as she
I wanna see
discovers
those
what
moves.
makes them tick, where they find their inspiration,
yes.
when creativity
yes.
first became their passion, and how their creative process can inspire the
About
rest
all
of
of
us
you.
to think out of the box. Enjoy, aka Radio Red's always lively, cool conversations with creatives. Oh, how those lips can talk.
There we go. Thank you very much. Wave goodbye and don't go away. Jordan, we're out.